I would like warmly welcome everybody, and first of all, Natalia, to accept our invitation. And I would like to give a little introduction to the event. And first of all, I also would like to thank the Polish Institute for having us, for hosting and supporting the event. I'd like to thank Dina Darabos for organizing this, and also artist Szabolcs Kispál for some practical support. So the talk Hideouts, The Architecture of Survival by Natalia Romik, public historian and architect, is the first public event in the run-up to the 5th edition of the OFF-Biennale Budapest that should open on May the 1st, 2025. Since it started in 2014 as grassroots initiative, OFF-Biennale Budapest has become one of the most significant institutional independent contemporary art events in Hungary, run by an expanding group of collaborators. It not only aims to maintain a platform for critical discourse on urgent social, political, cultural, and environmental issues, but to initiate exchanges between local and international artistic scenes, researchers, cultural workers, civil society organizations, while supporting local artistic production and building a broader general audience. OFF-Biennale Budapest is a member of the East Europe Biennial Alliance. The curatorial team for the next edition consists of Nicolett Erős, Rita Kálmán, Eszter Lázár, Edith Molnár, Veronika Molnár, Kata Oltai, Hajnalka Somogyi, Borbála Sós, Katalin Székely, Szalai Bori, and myself. Quite a team. The theme of the fourth edition revolves around the notions and the issues of safety and security that have taken center stage in mainstream political rhetoric and public discourse, and have quickly become the self-branding of radical right-wing parties. The exhibition and related programming focuses on the relationship between populism and security within the context of rapidly developing anti-democratic and authoritarian systems. Enveloped in a so-called common sense reasoning, empowered by diverse forms of surveillance and playing on emotions to appeal to their constituencies, this rhetoric triggers various forms of discrimination, incites racist and anti-LGBTQI+ hate speech, and pushes towards the weakening of civil society, economic divides, and culture as a political ideology. This talk now is part of Bridge of Solidarity program of the Yermilov Center in Kharkiv, a platform connected to the exhibition Sense of Safety. Driven by the Russian aggression and war against Ukraine, the open online platform Anti-War Coalition.art, initiated by Ambasada Kultúry and a group of Belarusian cultural workers, presents an opportunity to protest against war, dictatorship, authoritarianism, and collects, shares, and distributes statements against war created by artists from all over the world. I'd like to warn you, but probably you realized the event is being recorded. So now, last but not least, hello, surprise. Last but not least, I'd like to warmly welcome Natalia Romik. And I'm not going to go into details about the project because it's already been half introduced. But I'd like to just to give a few sentences to introduce you. So Natalia Romik is a public historian, architect, and artist whose work focuses on Jewish memory and commemoration of the Holocaust in Eastern Europe, particularly Poland and Ukraine. She has curated exhibitions, participated in rebuilding sites of remembrance, and created the Nomadic Shtetl Archive project, designed to engage local communities in remembering lost Jewish lives in small towns. Romik's work combines archival investigation, theoretical research, architectural design, artistic practice, and social engagement. She holds an MA in political studies from the Warsaw University. She has been active architect, designer, and artist, also as exhibition designer, and was awarded a PhD at Bartlett School of Architecture at the University College London, and she's currently a postdoctoral fellow at the Foundation for the Memory of the Shoah in Paris. Welcome, and the floor is yours. And sorry, what we wanted to say is we speak about like 50 minutes. 45, 50 minutes, and then we're going to have a Q&A, and obviously inviting everyone to join. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. This one works. Okay. So, to fit on time, I will read. I hope will be fine for you. And thank you so much, Lívia and Szabolcs, for bringing us here for the first time. Thank you so much, OFF-Biennale and Polish Institute. I will start that my research and practice are dedicated to the investigation and also preservation of the Jewish memory, as Lívia said, especially its material and architectural traces. I'm particularly interested in reviving forgotten legacy of shtetls, small formerly Jewish towns. Yeah, but shtetls, what does it mean shtetl? In Yiddish shtetl, shtetelech means a small town. Shtetl existed in Central Eastern Europe before the Second World War. The term connotated a settlement with the large and the compact Jewish population, which different from the neighboring peasant population in religion, occupation, language, but as well architecture, which is actually the most important for me. Shtetls were large enough to support basic network of institutions essential to Jewish communal life. Hence, in every shtetl, doesn't matter that in Poland, Ukraine, or Hungary, was at least one synagogue, a bath place, cemetery, schools, and also framework for voluntary associations. Let's try. So shtetls originated in the lands of the first Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, where nobility, having become powerful by the 16th century, invited Jews to settle their estates to stimulate also economic development. And from the 19th century, Ashkenazi Jews made up the majority inhabitants in the shtetl, very often far exceeding 50% of the population. And over the time, shtetl became common for any small town in Central Eastern Europe, which have a sizable Jewish population. I mean like Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, Hungary, Romania, and as well Russia. And this you can also see percentage of the Jewish towns, which actually are very crucial to me. So for example, in some of the towns, they were like 85% of the Jewish population. Currently, I'm working of the research of the Opatów city, 50%. So this kind of percentage changed a lot. A few years ago, I traveled through a dozen small towns together with Nomadic Shtetl Archive. What you can see here was a mirror-clad vehicle to bring back memories about the Jewish past. The visitors were very much interested in discussing the tragic legacy of Holocaust and the present absence of the former Jewish neighbors. So the story which I heard inside this Nomadic Shtetl archive, so here you can see this elevation of the archive, were not sugar-coated. So we talked a lot about difficult subjects like anti-Semitism, restitution of the property, but also Polish pogroms made on the Jewish neighbors. And what you can see, I will come back to the Nomadic Shtetl archive, and might be a big inspiration for you, because one of the most important sources, which I also used to get a glimpse of the former Jewish urban reality of the shtetls, they are memory books from Itzkor books, Kehilot books. So you can imagine that in every shtetl where 5 people survive Holocaust, or 57, or 1,000, people gather together and they actually paint, and they also wrote testimony about the pre-war life in a shtetl. Very often they were also written in Yiddish. So this is like the main source for me about actually location and the buildings before a Second World War. And now coming back to, you can also see how the maps looks very different. Sometimes are very organic, sometimes very architectural. And also you can see the memory maps of the small town in Hungary. And maybe you are coming from the small towns, some of you. So also I think it's like quite important to check. And all my research always started in a Jewish Historical Institute. This is like a picture with Jan Jagielski, dear historian who passed away already 5 years ago. And without him and without this research, Nomadic Shtetl Archive will never happen. So Nomadic Shtetl Archive is built on a mobile trailer, and they are my first sketches of Nomadic Shtetl Archive. So archive was built of the mobile trailer. Walls and the roof are constructed from wood and covered with plastic mirrors. So to entice people in interest in archival materials, we designed also adjustable floating doors, which also served as exhibition walls, which on Pinkas maps and other documents were presented. The unit is still equipped with the independent light system and electricity, because we were quite scared that if the city will not allow us to stay in the heart of the city, we will have our own independent grid. And the main aim using the mirrors from the elevation was to disappear and also merge in the landscape and emphasize what was important inside. And inhabitants were, in the nomadic Stadler archive, they were not passively absorbing documents about what I was exhibited inside, but also they play role of the co-researchers. So they helped me also to find new materials, fill in archival gaps, locate original buildings on sites, and find the traces, for example, of polychromes. And the conversation, they were very different. So, as I said before, we talk about local anti-Semitism, pogroms in the 30s, but also very cruel, in a Polish case, revitalization of the small cities in the beginning of the 2000s. But now, coming very slowly to hiding places, that was a one special day. Nomadic Stadler archive stopped in Bychawa city. So you can see this, that was the place where before the Second World War, 66% of the Jewish population. And early afternoon, somebody brought me this document, and actually documents of the Jewish pupil found in the attic of the former hiding place of Bychawa house during the renovation. And that was the moment when I started to wonder in what architectural condition are the hiding places nowadays. Has anyone ever researched them? And I think that was like this kind of aha moment when I thought like, okay, my project will be dedicated to the next project, to the hiding places. This slide is very crucial to me because artist, architect, historian, we never create alone. And scholarly research is always dependent on the collaborative effort. Work and support in the practice sometimes is very invisible to the public. And curators, researchers, specialists, and the friends stand behind of every artistic work. In the case of the Hideouts, Architecture of Survival, exhibition that was through many years a group effort that were able to explore the history of architecture of the 9 hiding places in Poland and Ukraine in which Jews hid during the World War II. The project was created with a wonderful team of curators, Kuba Schroeder, who is with us today, and Stach Ruksha, and researchers like Aleksandra Janus. And you can also see the picture of my dear friends from the Senna Collective, which is my architecture collective. The opening of the exhibition was in the National Gallery of Art in Warsaw, Zachęta, in March 2022. The project rests on the specialist work of the ethnography, history, geodesy, monument conservation, dendrology, speleology, and archaeology. And the exhibition, which I think is quite important to underline, was conducted as a part of my postdoctoral project, supported by Gerda Henkel Foundation and Memory of the Shoah. 2 institutions, not from Poland, by the way, that enabled me to conduct my research over 3 years. And what you can see here, but I will come back to the few cases, we managed with amazing team of the scholars to create the sculptures, which are artistic and scholarly tribute to architecture of survival. The hiding places built and used by Jews during the Holocaust. And in the light of the Russia barbaric invasion of the state of Ukraine, this exhibition have also different, I would say, level because of the strong coalition with the Center of Urban History in Lviv, and also friendship with the Ukrainian scholars. The whole exhibition in Zachęta we had in Polish, English, but also in Ukrainian language. In designing of the space, so you can also hear one of the cast, like in a one-to-one scale from the different hideouts. But I will show you examples of the few hideouts, which now looks quite abstract. And this is recent pictures from the Jewish Museum in Frankfurt. And the idea of the exhibition was one room was dedicated to the cast in the one-to-one scale, and the other room, what you can see in we design here with my architectural collective, Senna Collective, the special research tables, vitrines, where we gather not only documents about Holocaust, but also archaeological survey. There was a video with, for example, interview with Holocaust survivor, but also geodetic measurements, which are really, really crucial to each subject. The subject matter of Jews, what you can see here is like Jonas Stern hiding his beautiful painting. The subject matter of Jews going into hiding and the assistance they had received has appeared in a various research contexts of the Holocaust. But we know still very, very little about the architecture of the hiding places themselves. For once, because of the erosion, but also because the researchers have focused on the fate of those in hiding and the rescues. So the topic of the Jews in hiding and those who helping them has appeared, I would say, in one of my favorite books, Marta Zobel-Tokarska, Desert Island Borough Grave, Wartime Hiding Places, for example, Jacek Leociak, Life-Saving Stories of the Poles and Jews, or, for example, Natalia Alexion Daily, Survival, Social History of the Jews. It is estimated that during the Second World War, out of the 3 million Jewish citizens who lived in a pre-war Poland, only 50,000 survived the Holocaust by being hidden among so-called Aryan side population. Some of them managed to survive in this manner by themselves, which is very important to underline, while others were helped by their compatriots. And also, we should also think and remember about the Schmalzowniks, because the people and Jews, they were hiding not from the Nazi persecutors, but also from the other Polish people. Schmalzowniks, I mean like those who handed Jews over for financial gain. Most survivors had to refurbish existing architecture, I mean attics, sewers, cellars, to serve as their hideouts or build the new shelters, sometimes in a hollow tree, sometimes in empty graves. But the basic infrastructure of survival supposed to be invisible, but also sustain basic life functions. What I'm thinking, like provide shelter, provide food, water, dispose waste, using only a couple of square meters. And in this slide, you can see quite abstract map of Poland and also Ukraine, this geographic focus of my research. And now I would like to bring you to the few places that maybe will be easier to understand the story about each case. And the first one, we will go to Wiśniowa, which is like in a Podkarpacie region, really, really small village. And here what you can see is like now for you quite abstract, but will be not anymore, cast in a 1-to-1 scale from the oak, from the tree, where 2 brothers were hiding inside actually this tree. The case study which opened this exhibition was a story of the Joseph tree, a chimney tree. Chimney tree, what does it mean chimney tree? It's a hollow out tree, empty inside, which holds to this day secret of the 2 Jewish siblings, one hiding. I came across this information about the 650 years old tree after I started to look into the subject. So that was officially my first research. And what you can see, so here what you can see, this is a culture house in Wiśniowa, and from the 16th century that was like a mansion house. And this is like very important, the context of the place, because that was like a lot of rumors in the Wiśniowa village that 2 brothers were hiding inside a tree. But even like the tree, the oak tree, was commemorated in this bilan of 100 Polish zloty before the Second World War, because it was also a very important place when the artists gathered in Wiśniowa, especially in 19th century. And one very most important artist, Mechofer, he actually he drew this beautiful tree for a competition for a Polish bank. And there was a local rumor that actually that was a Joseph oak tree. So here in the slide, you can see documents of the journalist Mr. Peltz from the 1961, if I can see correctly, and there was a local rumor. He was traveling all around Poland, and he saw this is the pictures from the 50s in the Joseph oak tree, like this kind of gap inside the tree. And he was also doing his research in the village, and he said like he was able to see sort of like evidence, something that human, maybe some people left object inside the tree. And he said like maybe in the future we can investigate this place. But there was a 1961, and actually I found this document 4 years ago in a Washington sources of the Holocaust Museum, and there was like really big inspiration for me to actually look inside the tree. Next slide, please. And always I'm repeating what we cannot find in archive. We always, we must look also by ourselves. So this was the moment when, together with dendrologist Jerzy Bieńczyk, we managed to look inside the tree. And actually, that was the moment when we implicate inside the tree endoscopic camera. And to our surprise, in the next slide, you can see what we found. There was like a shelf covered of the metal bracket, and just like that was really kind of not common to look up inside the trees and to see one of the shelf. And the next year, like our dear colleague Rafał Żwirek, he climbed inside the tree, and to our surprise, in the next slide, you can see like a first shelf, one of the 14. So probably the brothers, who actually they were like the local population, they thought they were Hymi brothers, they built the structure, the whole structure inside this chimney tree. And together with anthropologist Aleksandra Janus, we took out one of the shelf, and we sent to the dendrochronologist, and he dated to 1942. And as for the brothers and their name, I was quite sure with Aleksandra Janus from the beginning that the name of the Hymi could be not real name. And now I will show you why art is so powerful in the next slide. This is also this idea that we make like a geodetic scans of every case, really to remember the place. In the next slide, this is like one of the 3D scan. And in the next, this is like the moment when Aga Schroeder was helping me and working on the putting the silicon mold. And that was like very unexpected moment when two local historians approached us, and they said, you know, Natalia, Jewish Museum is wrong. Jewish Historical Institute, they were not Hymi brothers. We know the story because we are writing the book about the local Jewish population. And making long story short, this night when there was the same moment when we made the cast of the tree, we found the story about the brothers who were hiding inside the tree. And here, just like that was the first moment how we make the cast. So you can see the silicon mold, we put the silicon mold, and afterward also we put like a scaffolding. And in the next slide, this is actually this moment when we found the family of the Denholz brothers, Mania and Helen, and with Aleksandra Janus, we had this like a beautiful Skype conversation with a sip of vodka. So, you know, just like that was like this moment from the other side when you are working of the commemoration and sorry, not commemoration, but like a sculpture. And from the other side, you are providing the historical research. Next slide, please. So I envisioned the sculptures as a mirror-like imprints of the historical hiding places. Their making involved to use the classical sculptural casting technique. The exhibited hideout representation are outcome, and again, of the collaborative effort of Aga Schroeder and Rafał Żwirek. And once the silicon structure was hardened, the gypsum master model and scaffolding were applied to it. In order to protect the form, as you can see in this slide, we also put this scaffolder, which was like very important. And once, when the whole process was completed, in the next slide, you can see how we work together with the Piotr Pelc Conservator Studio in Wrocław. And also in the next slide, they were silver plated using the method, probably you know this method very well, in a monument conservation and applied to the sculptures and also sacral architecture. And actually the silver casting, like the highest quality of the silver, this kind of small part of the Joseph oak tree, like really this small, took me 9 hours. So that was a very, very long procedure. And I was showing to you at the beginning Nomadic Städte archive and also the silver cast and the reflection, because still like silver and this all hauntological aura of the sculptures is also very important to me, and we can talk about it later on. Yeah. Yeah. And the silver of the cast is also for me the tribute to the amateur architects who applied tools at their disposal, mostly in the nighttime, fear for the neighbors to build hiding places. So you can hear me well, or just like, because I can hear myself a bit, okay. And now I will show you the case from Warsaw. In the next slide, now we are moving to Warsaw, to the to Wola district and to the Jewish cemetery. And this is like a story about the hideouts in a quarter now number 41, which is an Orthodox quarter in a Jewish cemetery. In the next slide, you will see this kind of abstract picture taken from the drone. That was the hiding place created during the war by Isaac Posner, who was back then intendant, director of the cemetery, and the Moshe Aroniak, stonemason. And this is also very important to say, because who was building hiding places and why some of those are really well designed? Because the people before the Second World War, they knew how to build the stuff. So here in this quarter number 41, you can see in the next slide, quite visible from this picture, this is actually a bunker, like 3.5 meters per 2.5 meters, and 3 tram rails that actually they cover with the matzevot, Jewish tombstones, to be really invisible. So to the right, you can also see this bunker was made from the bricks, which is very unusual, especially in a Jewish cemetery, because we know, just like the body is supposed to be put directly to the soil, not to the bricks. And the previous director of the cemetery, he asked me, Natalia, this is really unusual place. So why this bunker, what is here in a Jewish cemetery? And so this is also very important to say that this hiding place was not used longer than a few months. In the next slide, you will see a picture of me and Alexandra Janus with Abraham Karmi. The young guy back then, he was 14, who survived in this bunker. So that was not only one hiding place that he stayed during the war, but that was also very, very common to use different hideouts, not only this grave. And Abraham Karmi and also Aroniak, they survived the war, but some of the people, as you will see probably in the next slide, they were shot on the spot, because there was only one rule: you were never running to the hiding place. And few people actually, they were shot on the spot. And during our exhibition in Zachęta, we have like a lot of guiding tours. And Abraham is, he was still alive a year ago, and his dream was to commemorate this place. So also with Senna Collective, in the next slide, you will see our idea how to, no, sorry, that will be not in the next, but this is also very important, that together with Rabbinical Commission, respecting Jewish law, which is the halacha law, we made archaeological survey, finding inside the grave, inside the bunker, coins, metal brackets, and the pieces of the matzevot. We will also repeat next year this investigation with Dr. Szymon Lenarczyk and Aleksandra Janus. And everything what we found inside, we also we were showing in Zachęta and also in our exhibition. So you can imagine in these showcases, we gather all materials that we, for example, found inside, let's say here in a grave. So in the next slide, you will see the shape of the grave. And when I asked Abraham Karmi about condition living in a hideout, he said, Natalia, I will not talk about it. Maybe let's talk about architecture. So architecture was this moment that actually we share our stories, but he refused to talk about smell, food, and this very personal story from being in this place. And probably they extend existing grave and they make a larger space with putting the bricks. And in the next slide, you will see our idea to commemorate this place, but very simple as an archaeological survey, although I found the voices and that's supposed to be like a big monument and very visible. But we are thinking, just like to cover this hall, to protect, to write the names of the people who were shot on the spot, but as well to bring everything what we found inside this archaeological survey. So, and also it's important to say that Abraham and Dawid Poński, they survived the war and they both took refuge in many other places after 1942, and Abraham currently lives in Israel. And in the next slide, and this is also the same method, the same technique, how we made the cast in a one-to-one scale from the spot. And in the next slide, you will see our work on the Jewish cemetery. And this is also important to say that it's not my imagination about the hideouts. I think that would be quite unkosher. And because also it's like a repository of the memory. Yeah. So now we are moving to Żołkwa, to Ukraine, the city that was before the Second World War. There was a Polish city, Żółkiew. A hiding place was hollowed out in the ground under the private house in Lwivska Street, has been preserved where the Schwarz, Patronasz, Stekel, Melman Jewish families hid. The hiding place was established in a house of the latter, which in agreement with the people in hiding was taken over the Volksdeutsch Beck and his family. Originally, this house had no cellar, so the whole cellar was hauled out. And at the peak, 18 people hid in this place, some of them for 20 months, from 1942 till 1944. And this actually record of the story, it's keeping like it's very well-known story because of this testimony of a Klara Kramer before the war, Klara Schwarz. But again, this is like quite different. The story is well-known, but this place was never investigated, like research. And here what you can see now, the Ukrainian family is living here, like it's really amazing family. They allowed us to stay for like really like hours. And together with the team of geodets, we make a 3D scan, which you will see in the next slide. So also you can see the house, the family actually, Ukrainian family, they thought like this shelter was much smaller, but actually the family built like really the extent, they make almost the reverse of the house. And in a Clara's testimony, you can also find the story like, this kind of normalization of the life. They have a kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, although you cannot stand there. It's not the same position like, for example, in a grave, in a Jewish cemetery, but you cannot stay like this. And so you can imagine the condition of their life for 2 years. And despite the denunciation of the fire, all inhabitants of the building, except one actually girl, they survived the war. And in the next slide, also you will see how we made with Oleg Konoshenko the cast from the actually entry to the parquet. And this is no commemoration of this place. So again, the cast, it's for me this kind of nomadic commemoration, and also elements that we found like this button inside, and the Clara testimony I think is the most important testimony. And in the next slide you will see the shape of the hideout. Yeah. And one of also the most difficult, I would say maybe not the subject, but the places. In the next slide, you will see the story about the hideout in Lviv. So probably you know the history of Ignacy Higer and the whole family who survived in a sewer system in Lviv, in a canalization system, more than a year. And this is like, in the next slide, you will see pictured the 3D scan of the place where the family stay over, I would say, 5 months. This is like in the heart of the Lviv. It's the Church of the Holy Mary, Matka Boska Śnieżna. I don't know how it's in English. But the whole family with Krystyna Higer, Paul Higer, they stayed 2 years and until July 44, when a Polish worker, Socha, brought them to the surface. And in the next slide, you can see the picture taken by Taras Nazaruk. This research was possible by help of the Urban Explorer group, like the group who loves really sewer system. You can imagine they are like fascinated of the sewer system. And we were able to actually very early at the morning. The other picture was taken like the scan we made at the like it's recorded, so I cannot tell you everything, but maybe afterwards. Yeah, so coming back to the subject, we decided to make a cast, and in the next slide you will see very important element of this exhibition that Anna Tichka from the Urban Explorer group, she found inside the sewer system few objects that we also exhibited inside our research tables. So still, as an exhibition, like the cast and also research room are coherent, and they are like, to me, and probably for Kuba, like so important together. Yeah. And also you can find a story about the family in this beautiful book, The Girl in a Green Sewer, written by Krystyna Higer. So the next slide, it's also a canalization system. We can talk about it later on. Next, please. So now we are moving, we are also staying in Ukraine, but this is like a hideout in one of the largest caves in Central and Eastern Europe. So now we are moving to Tarnopol Oblast, to the Vertreba cave. This is the story about the Stremer family from very small shtetl Korolivka. Esther and Zajda Stremer had 6 children, and they stay in hiding. They start to hide in 1942 because they were forced to move other shelter than in Korolivka village. They hid in a Vertreba cave, which actually is quite easy accessible from the ground level. And in the next slide, you will see this 3D scan made also by geodets, because we also decide to not only make a cast in the next slide from the one of the guys. They were like in the Hashomer Hatzai youth, like a Zionist lefty group. So I found with Kuba that would be a really good idea to make a cast from this wall. And they were like separate spaces for sleeping, cooking, and other activities. But the whole cave, it's actually quite accessible, but still this research will be impossible without the help of the Center of Urban History and 2 speleologists. And the story about the Stremer, they were actually uncovered, the hiding was uncovered in 1943, and the whole group was captured, and they tried to find other shelter. And the other shelter was the cave, which is actually like more or less 7 kilometers from this space, which is Ozerna cave. Next slide, you will see the cast in a 1-to-1 scale with the Hashomer. It's quite invisible from this side, but you can see from the closest distance. So after, when the family actually escaped to Ozerna cave, in the next slide, this is this hideout. It's actually impossible to go now. So we made this whole story together with a speleologist and again with the Center of Urban History. It's also important to say that this cave is more than 158 kilometers corridors. So you cannot, you know, as a speleologist, you cannot actually go there alone. And Ozerna is much harder to reach than Vertreba. And unlike in the previous hiding place, there were men also remaining hiding, but sometimes they were going out to the surface, and mainly in the night to get the food. And the entire group, in the next slide, you will also see some remains of the Stremer family. And the entire group left the cave in April 1944, and some people surviving in both caves for more than 511 days. And you can see here this, it's Polish, is a żarno, a graining stone. So that was the only one stone elements in a whole cave, because like the whole cave is like a limestone, it's very soft. And this stone actually allowed Stremer family to survive, to make a bread. So then we decided to make a cast in the next slide, actually from this stone, which was not really easy task. And, but also very crucial in a testimony that you can actually you can find. And in the next slide, you will see this imprint cast, how we can talk about it like later on of the quern. Do we have like with the time schedule? A little bit. Okay, so I will show you the last case very, very briefly, which is very different, because that was the only one object that was object themselves. So this is a story about the wardrobe from Huta Zaborowska in Poland. So now we are moving to Poland, 60 kilometers north from Warsaw. In 2020, the new owners of the house in Huta Zaborowska, they actually noticed drawings and inscription in a wooden wardrobe, indicating that it might have been a wartime hiding place, most likely for a Jewish child or teenager. The wardrobe was made before the war by one of the members of the family, of the first owners of the house in Zapałowski family. In 2000, the house was sold and the new owners moved to the wardrobe, to the storage room for the renovation, and actually they would love to, the idea was to demolish this wardrobe. And the owners of the family, they called Museum, Jewish Museum, that in the next slide you will see visible drawings, but also it's like in Polish it's written, this wardrobe was my hiding place. So together with Aleksandra Janus and Dr. Luisa Nader, 2 years ago we started our investigation of the wardrobe, and also you can see the fairy tale, sometimes levitating naked woman inside the wardrobe, and also as a sex scene. So probably a small boy, what we think, he was hiding there for like a few days. And also in the next slide you will see this, it's written in Polish, this wardrobe was my hiding place from 21st February 43, and probably it's like April 43. So that in the next month there will be our article in a Holocaust Studies journal, actually only about this case. So there was more places. But I will slowly finish with a very important slide to me, because the story of the hiding places are still, I would say, developing. And in the next slide, you will see quite, no, this is actually the book of the hideouts, but I will repeat the slide at the end. And so this is like a not wartime. It's not 40s, it's this picture was taken 2 years ago, so probably you are aware about the political situation between and the situation in so-called refugee crisis in the Polish-Belarusian borderline. More than 100 people died. There were like a lot of pushback, and previous Polish government decided to build a wall, like a massive wall and a fence, to actually, let's say, protect Polish and European Union territory of the refugees from Syria, Eritrea, Africa, but also Palestine. And this shelter And this shelter is in the Puszcza Białowieska, Białowieża forest. Natalia Judzińska, amazing Holocaust scholar, but also she's an activist of the group Badacze na Granicy, the researchers of the borderline. She found this shelter actually built by a Syrian refugee family. And we have a very long discussion because Natalia was the person that also she wrote beautiful and very enthusiastic review about the exhibition, about the hiding places. And we decided together with Przemysław Kluźniak from Architube group team, the same guy who was traveling with me in Poland and also in Ukraine, we made a 3D scan of the cave sewer system. And we decided also to make a 3D scan of this place as a matter of evidence what the Polish government have done with the refugees. And so in the next slide, you will see quite abstract form, and we have also video. So this is like a moving image of the shelter. And we were there with Natalia and Alexandra Janus, bringing like some water, food. And this hiding place was used more for a year for different families as the only one shelter hiding place, probably like maybe there was also the other one in a Polish-Belarusian borderline. And the next slide you will see, maybe Kuba will talk about it more, because currently in Karlsruhe in ZKM Centrum, we are having like now exhibition Matters of Evidence. That was a few months ago. We had a conference with the different scholars, and we discussed mostly the matters of evidence in different areas, different subjects. Natalia was also there, and she was telling more about this hideouts and the situation in the Polish-Belarusian borderline. And also in the next slide, you will see how the idea of the sharing, and also what I underlined in the beginning, that we never work alone and we never create alone. Some of the exhibition tables and the vitrines, we give space to the other scholars, like for example here Natalia Judzińska. And this is also drawings made by Mustafa, that he also survived this awful months in a Polish-Belarusian borderline, and he drew himself in the forest. But also you will see Joseph Oak Tree, that you know the story now about the chimney tree, and the grave as an idea of the spin-up project and how we reveal the story about the hiding places. And also thinking about the role of the public historian or artist to revisit the past and to rethink the present and our future. And in the next slide, you will see our book, Hideouts, Architecture of Survival, that you can also find not only like a really well-written case by case, not only about the grave and caves, but also the places in Lviv, and that's like, of course, more, but also beautiful essays by, for example, Jonathan Hill, François Genet, Louisa Nader, or Tim Cole. And I highly recommend you to find more and more actually inspiration and how we can think about never again, which I think is not useful anymore. But yes, thank you very much.
Share. Yeah. Okay, thanks so much for this fascinating presentation. And I made a lot of notes, and I'll try to actually start somewhere, because what you were talking about is like, it brings so many things on the table. Like, so I go into the middle, and I want to know a little bit more about your relationship to the objects that you create, like artworks. Because for me, these objects are also not just evidence, they are document, they are anti-monument, they are commemorative objects, they are visualized absence. So there's a lot of, so there's a lot connected to the property, to actually like a certain kind of monument of survival. But also, like you said in a previous talk that you also feel that there is kind of a protection around. So I think you use the shamas, like also the helper, when it comes. So it seems that when you're making these objects, these are so many layers that come together. So I think this would be great if you could elaborate on that as well.
Okay, so we have this one. Okay. Yeah, it's so many layers. Maybe about the protection. Because, like, I was sharing with you the slides with the Jewish cemetery in Warsaw, and some of the hiding places, like, they are not commemorated, and they are also in a bad condition. And it's like quite fascinating because now I'm thinking about the commemoration and protection of the monuments, and also how the last 10 years, or a bit maybe more in Poland, we still like we're striking with like monuments, like, you know, the commemoration with that must be something big, and what does it mean commemoration, and counter monuments or maybe anti monuments. Those places have no commemoration. And the Joseph Oak tree, I forgot to mention, the tree won Eurovision for the tree. We have something like this, European Tree of the Year. I think Hungary won like a few years ago. But yeah, it's true. So please vote. I love it. And the Joseph Oak won in 2017. And thinking also about the history of the Holocaust and history, how the Jews survive and righteous among the nation, but also about the Schmalzowniks, how the story was complex. It's very hard to commemorate those places, but how you can commemorate, you know, like sewer system in Lviv, it's almost impossible. So we commemorate them through our and my research and this collective research, and the cast, they are like a, you know, like a symbol of commemoration, and still invisible. Still, when you approach the cast and the sculpture, you cannot see yourself because we cannot fully reflect what was happening in even that we collect the story, even when we found the story about the Denholz brothers. I forgot to mention they actually survived Holocaust. They survived concentration camp in Płaszów, and they immigrate to United States. But this is the form of commemoration, I think. Yeah, just like yeah, through this exhibition, like yeah. Yes.
Okay, so it works. So there is, before I'd like to open the floor quite soon. So, but I'm really curious. So how do you negotiate this research within the current context, political context? And we know that Poland has been also through some difficult moments, and not mentioning Ukraine. So I'm also curious because the last year also brought a lot of currents internationally as well. So kind of globally, there's a lot of push towards negotiating this Holocaust histories, past histories. So I just like to see how did you navigate within this political, ideological kind of labyrinth that we are very familiar with here, but I guess in Poland it was also very difficult.
I think with the hiding places, because the research was done, it was a part of my postdoctoral project, which was actually supported, as I mentioned before, by German and French foundation, and later on also by Zachęta, the Ministry of Culture, with Hanna Wróblewska, that she's now Polish culture Minister of Culture, which is really great. And I don't know, this project might be possible like 10 years ago or 5 years ago from this kind of repository of the, you know, like a Polish universities, or like, this is actually a sad story, but I think Kuba will tell more about it tomorrow, about precarity and working in such a big project, so probably we'll hear more. But 10 years ago, that already maybe was 7 years ago, I was a curator of the exhibition about March 68 in Polish Museum. March 68, making long story short, because of the like very strong anti-Semitism, In Poland, 30,000 Polish Jews, they were kicked out from Poland, mostly to Israel, but also Scandinavia. Scandinavia was the place that they still welcome Polish refugees. And there was a moment when Polish Prime Minister, officially in a government, in a Polish Sejm, he said that was anti-Polish exhibition, which actually that was very, very dark moment, I think, also for not only for the museum, for director Stola, but also for many scholars, mostly Holocaust scholars, because we cannot talk about righteous among the nation, not talking about schmalzowniks. And, this kind of disproportion was especially hard for Holocaust scholars and for artists too, but mostly for Holocaust scholars. And with the hiding places, the big repositorium and this kind of knowledge and coalition, they were also small towns in Poland and the small NGOs like Brama Grodzka, Brama Zuckermana, the people who are really not only enthusiasts, but they are working with the Jewish heritage on a daily basis. So the first slides with Nomadic Shtetl Archive, I made the big trip in Poland, having beautiful coalitions, and they helped me really to actually not only find documents, but it will be very, very hard to achieve something without the background that allows me to work locally, and yeah.
And I just wanted to know, so what is the status? Because I was thinking about it, you basically through the years, all with the collaborators, different communities, you talk about the kind of a network of friendship, kinship. So what is, you basically setting up a kind of a museum as well. So I'm just kind of curious, museum in quotation marks. So what's going to happen? So what do you consider with this material? Is it going to, because it kind of what I feel through projects, that it kind of infiltrates in different contexts, whether it's a historical situation or now in the ZKM, which is this big project about forensics. I think there's an exhibition coming up in September. So I'm just kind of curious about the future of because you were also working on some 8 and 9 case studies again, so it's just a curiosity how is it going to
the project will never end.
Yeah.
It will never end because now I'm just I'm starting my stipend in Wissenschaftskolleg in Berlin in February, and the idea is also to work on the contemporary hiding places in Belarus, Ukraine, different countries, using, I would say, frames from the Holocaust studies, which that might be quite tricky, but as a Holocaust scholar, I think it's much easier for us. But this is very important. And I think the case of the Polish-Belarusian borderline was very important, and especially geodetic survey, working with the geodets currently in the Opatów city. It's, I think, all this evidence through the 3D clouds and how we measure those places, because, this place in a Żołkwa, in a Ukraine, this private house, that might be demolished. We don't know. Now, Miss Irina, she's wonderful, but who knows what will happen in 10 years. So it's, in the end, it's a matter of evidence as well. So as an artist, I think also this is the role of historian to capture the past and to collect archive, to make an archive public. And I think it's also the same with the matters of evidence and how the Joseph Oak tree or the grave, it's again, is a kind of shamus, help us to navigate, to collect people, to build coalition. And I think at the end, it's it's all about coalition and how we can, or resist or to build something together or to live together, yeah.
And I also, before I give the floor to the guests, I'd like to ask, do you see that this project is kind of making a difference in historical representation? Let's say, not just museums, but discourse.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And you can also read this beautiful article, essay made by Jonathan Hill, who actually passed away a year ago, amazing architecture historian. And I think this project is actually have different roots, and I think it's like very, very spongy to art historian, to activists like Natalia Judzińska. So actually that was unexpected. I cannot expect this like 2 years ago, and I think because of the coalition, it's growing. Yeah. And of course, I forgot to mention you, just like I spent a very sad year in archive, you know, but it's like, so that's why I was showing to you this picture with Jan Jagielski and Jewish Historical Institute. Yeah.